More to come on Arsenal's game at St Mary's in a bit, but let's start off with West Ham taking on Burnley. Ordinarily at this point, we would hear from both managers ahead of this kickoff. However, earlier today, it was announced that Burnley have parted company with Sean Dyche after 9.5 years in charge. They are 4 points from safety, just 8 games remaining. But did you find the timing of this slightly odd, Steve? Yeah,
really strange. I mean, I'm a bit mixed on it, to be fair, because Burnley have been poor this season. They've been below average in their performances, and they deserve to be in the bottom 3. They've dangled their legs above that trapdoor for season upon season and got away with it. But you just feel as though a change needed to be happen. But to do it now seems really strange. I mean, whether the board have got hold of some senior players and gone, look, you know, can we get out of this with Sean Dyche involved, or they've gone, don't think so, or, you know, they've had a meeting about next year and Sean Dyche has gone, you know, there should have been a disagreement. Look, the result against Everton was fantastic, really positive, and then they go and lose to Norwich, which was really, really poor. Whether it's a knee-jerk reaction from the owners, I'm not sure, but you just felt with Sean Dyche involved, there was the know-how of how to get out, but for some reason, you know, they've left it late.
I think that's the bizarre thing, isn't it? Because most pundits that you talk to and journalists that have, you know, covered Burnley for a number of time, you know, everyone says that when you look at the teams in and around that relegation scrap, most people would say Burnley have still got a chance because of Sean Dyche, not because of the players.
No, I would agree. I think, like, when you've been there and done it, and he knows, and it's the same group of players, so they've been there and they know. And I think the run of games, I think that's the more importantly. The run of games they've got, the next 8 games, they're winnable games for Burnley. You know, under Dyche, I didn't think that they were going to, look, they're in a bad position, they haven't performed, but with the run of games they've got and the run of games Everton have got and teams around them, I actually thought they could get out of this drop. So the timing of it is just bizarre. Something's got to have happened for him to be getting sacked now, because they've been fighting this relegation pretty much from the start of the season.
Is it their most recent form then? 5 defeats in 6 games? What do you think it is? Or was it just that Norwich game? You lose to Norwich and that's it, you're out.
Well, I think Norwich won 5 games this season. After 3 of those games, the opposition have sacked the manager.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of a thing going on.
And one of those times, it was actually Daniel Farker. He won his first game, didn't he? And then got sacked.
Exactly. But I mean, the nature of that defeat, when I watched the game, it was a pretty poor defeat, obviously following on from the Everton game. When they beat Everton, we all thought, right, here we go. And I think Sean Dyche thought that as well, didn't he? The way he spoke about after the game, he thought he felt they were going to go on there. And obviously then this defeat's pretty bad. It smacks to me of panic. Of an ownership who's thinking we just can't be relegated. We know the ownership model is predicated on being in the Premier League and having the Premier League money. So I think sometimes with owners, they get to a stage of the season, well, what can you do? The only thing you can do is change the manager. However, anyone who thinks of Burnley thinks of Sean Dyche. So you think, what's the biggest asset Burnley have got? And everyone says, well, Sean Dyche. So you've taken your biggest asset out, you know, having signed a 4-year contract at the start of the season, by the way. And so he's gone. So it just smack up, either of there's been a bust up or panic, or probably both, basically.
There's not enough time, I don't believe, and the position they're in, for a manager to come in now and change anything, not much is going to change.
No.
And it's going to be difficult for any manager now coming in to really change this Burnley team or style.
I don't think there's a lot of style to change. I mean, we know how Burnley play, and I think the one name that springs to mind is someone like Sam Allardyce that would just go in and would just use the tools that he's got, 2 banks of 4, 2 up top. You know, we'll put balls in the box, we'll sustain attacks, get the balls wide, get crosses in to try and survive, and that's it. It can only be a short hope of survival bid, that is it.
He's the longest serving manager in the Premier League, 9.5 years, 258 Premier League matches is what he took charge of. Do you feel like, as you said, Jason, it almost feels like it is a bit of a panic, but often in these situations when there are only a few games left to play, and it feels like quite an odd time as well, the Friday night before a weekend of football, that they've got someone lined up ready to go, or does it feel like this was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction?
You've got to, well, so they lost last Sunday, so they've taken the decision today. So in that meantime, presumably they've been assessing what to do. So you'd hope they've got somebody lined up to come in straight away. And I think the under-23 coach is doing the press conference tomorrow, so clearly they haven't got somebody to do that. And as you say, they're straight into a game. So is he going to take that game? And what's interesting today is all the coaching staff went with Sean. Obviously, I know they're very close to him, so obviously, presumably that was the thinking behind that. So you have to hope, for Burnley's sake, they have somebody ready to go to come in there. But I would have thought that'd have happened by now. So maybe they haven't.
That's the thing is when this announcement was made earlier today, it almost felt like because of the timing, you'd get almost an immediate announcement after.
Yeah.
However, the statement Burnley Football Club put out was that they're still in discussions about who will replace Sean Dyche. And we're hearing that Ben Mee, who's obviously a centre-half for Burnley and still playing, is going to be part of that coaching setup.
Which makes it sound like even more off the cuff or a late decision, because we all know in football, whispers get out. You know, someone's going to be on the verge of getting a sack, or you know, from the game last weekend to now, you feel like there would have been a whisper or something in the press. There's been nothing at all, which makes it think: has there been a disagreement? Has there been a bust up? Has there just been something? There's something there that's underlining for this factor. It's not. They've not just had a week to think on it and then make a decision today. No,
but he would have been preparing the team for the weekend's fixture.
Yeah.
So it's strange. It's not an immediate reaction to the result at Norwich, because if it was, they would have probably done it a little bit earlier in the week, got somebody fresh in to organise the team ready for the weekend. A Friday night before weekend, the team's already, set in stone what they're going to do at the weekend. So it's pretty much Sean Dyche's, game plan, whatever for the game. So it's crazy that the timing of it just doesn't seem right. And as you say, Steve, it's more of a reaction to maybe a bust-up or something that's happened, because the timing of it doesn't sit right with me.
Well, let's have a look at the games that are remaining for Burnley now, because 8 matches still to go. Look, they're only 4 points from safety, so they can still survive. And I imagine that this is why this sacking of Sean Dyche has happened, is they believe that there's a way out of this. Where can you see them picking up points here?
I mean, they're all winnable. I mean, you take Spurs out of it because they're the standout team there. You'd say they're all winnable, really, for Burnley. But it depends what Burnley turns up. They've been so inconsistent this season. And the one thing as well, we're all shocked in terms of the sacking, in terms of the signing, the timing. But let me tell you now, the players, because all they know is Sean Dyche there. The players building up for this West Ham game alone, but now going in next week, not having Sean Dyche there, not having that voice, it's gonna spread waves through the training ground and for match days as well.
What do you think this means long term for Burnley, Jason? Because we're so used to seeing Sean Dyche there, and he's done a remarkable job taking the team to Europe and keeping them in the Premier League for as long as they have, and they've been. They're a team we're used to seeing in the Premier League now, which is incredible, really. So
if you look at Leeds United, obviously when Marcelo Bielsa went, we all thought that was his sort of imprint on Leeds United. We thought, we kind of understood why he went in the end, but it was a shock still in a sense that when he went. And obviously, but Jesse Marsch has gone in there and had a great effect. The Burnley have got to do something similar. I don't see it. I really don't see it. And I think you're right. I mean, it's not just Sean Dyche, the manager, is Sean Dyche the kind of influence, not just in the team, but in the club, in the town. If you go to Burnley, it's like Dycheville.
There's a pub named after him. Apparently, they're still keeping it. They're not changing the name, which is good news.
So he's so ingrained in everything that they've achieved at the club. It just feels so seismic for him to go.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to go in a completely different direction. I don't know. Personally, I would fear for them, and I would fear that they'll go in the direction of a Bolton or a club like that, or Charlton, just drop through the divisions. I would really fear for them. Now, hopefully they'll get it right. I mean, obviously I hope they get it right for their sake, but I fear for them, I really do.
I'll tell you one team that would be absolutely buzzing with this would be Everton. Because they'll look at that and they'll go, that's them. Not them done, but that's a big advantage for Everton now. Just looking at that, just going, they've got rid of Sean Dyche. That's huge for us.
Yeah, well, it is certainly news that surprised all of us in the studio. Let's see what David Moyes thought of this news when he received it earlier on in his press conference.
Shocked, a little bit surprised as well. Maybe a wee bit at the timing, but I'm more shocked because I think Sean's done such a great job, established Burnley over many years, kept him in the Premier League when he was probably up against it with no lack of budget maybe in comparison to other clubs in the Premier League. And it wasn't too long ago that they qualified for Europe in the competition we're in. So you have to think that over recent times Burnley have been a really, really good, very hard team to play against. Difficult place to go, as all the managers tell you when they're going to play at Burnley, and most of that's been done by Sean. So a little bit surprised and certainly shocked by his departure.
Yeah, David Moyes, pretty much the same reaction as all of us. Shocked, surprised. Do you think now going to Turf Moor or facing Burnley, Farah, it's going to feel different? It's going to feel like a lot easier than it would be if you were facing a Sean Dyche Burnley? Certainly for the rest of this season.
Yeah, I think potentially. I think, it's a horrible place to go to, isn't it, Turf Moor? No, it is. It's horrible, and I think he also
I know.
he also made it ugly. They played ugly. They're directing his approach. They're aggressive, aren't they? And it made it really difficult. Look, I think that's what suited them, and that's what especially at home at Turf Moor. That's where they were able to get results. It's going to be it's going to be so different. I don't know how but I don't think the players' mindset or approach to games can change that much. I think it's drilled into them now. That's who they are. That's their identity as a squad. So, as I say, for the next 8 games, I think it's just a case of managing that group of players and trying to get results. I think that the games are winnable. That's what I'm so surprised at. That's why I just can't get my head around why they would get rid of somebody that is so big to the club and the players have huge respect for.
Yeah, well, first up, it's West Ham, who they'll be facing off the back of what was a gruelling 90 minutes in Europe for them yesterday. Lots of the players going down tired with cramp. They left absolutely everything out on the pitch in France, Steve. So will Burnley now see this as a bit of an opportunity? They've got injuries in the team as well, West Ham.
Yes, and considering West Ham don't really change their 11, 12, 13 players, but I've been in that situation when you're riding a wave and you're playing high and confidence is there, you want to play in every game and you feel invincible and you feel like your recovery speeds up and you can't wait for the next game. So Burnley, I mean, look, if Sean Dyche was in charge, I could see Burnley winning, but I can only see a West Ham win now on the weekend.
How much credit does David Moyes deserve, Jason, for what he's doing with this West Ham side, getting them to a European semi-final for the first time in 46 years?
I think it's the best work he's done in his career. I mean, obviously he did a fantastic job at Everton for 11 years. We know obviously that earned him the Manchester United job. But I think this is now the best work he's ever done in his career. I think he's absolutely at the top of his game as a manager. I think he feels more self-assured than ever. I think at Everton there was a little bit of a chippiness around David. I think he kind of sort of them and us sort of approach. When I look at him now, I see a manager who's in control of the situation, who's developing a really good team, who's got the identity of the club, basically shaped the way he wants it to be, got all the fans behind him, playing good football as well. I think he's developed them as a football team. Yep. I think they're one of the best coached teams in the Premier League. When I watch them play, everyone knows what they're doing, and even in situations where they've been losing, they've got themselves back into games. I've seen them. He's adapted and he's obviously used his substitutes very well. I couldn't give him high enough praise, really. I think he's done a terrific... I'm really pleased for him as well, because I was one of those who was a bit fearful that his career was going in one direction, and the way he's turned it round, I'm really pleased for him. I think he deserves every success.
Yeah, he's nicknamed the Moyesiah, which I quite like. And he's continually improving players in this West Ham squad as well. You look at Jared Bowen, who came to the club and has just been ignited. He's in incredible form, 15 goals in all competitions this season for West Ham. How important has he been, Farah?
Oh, he's been magnificent, hasn't he? Antonio, there's a few of them. Bowen in particular, look, when he had to change his role and he was a central number 9 for a period of time. But he's full of confidence. And Jason mentioned it there. It's about, the coaching that goes on there and the time that's put into these players. And then you get buy-in from the players. When you put trust into your coach, in which they're all doing their jobs, aren't they? When you look at this West Ham team, they're so organised. They all know their roles within the team. They're playing together. They've got the fans on board. They're actually an exciting team to watch. They can do both, can't they? We always know Moyes' teams are really organised, but what they can do, as you mentioned, is that they can play, and these young players like Bowen just flourish with that.
There was a lot of pressure on Bowen as well, because he was banging in goals for Hull in the Championship, and there's always that, can he step up as a striker into the Premier League? He struggled at the start. It took his time to adapt, but you're seeing the Jared Bowen that was at Hull, and now every finish he's so confident. You can tell when a striker's confident, because when it comes to them, whether it's instinctively or they take the touch just where they need that ball to go away from that defender to finish, he's absolutely flying at the moment.
They've needed him as well.
What's impressive though about Moyes, like what he's able to do with them flair players. You look at Fornells, Lanzini, Bowen himself, how he gets them to work off the ball. Because those luxury players, they hate all the work and the running off the ball. But for him to be able to manage players like that and get both sides of their game, I think, look, as you mentioned, Jason, it's a credit to Moyes and his style and his approach to management of these players.
The only thing I would say to that is it's easy to do that when you're winning. But when you're losing and you're in a rut, them hard yards are the hardest ones to do. But as well, what I would say with David Moyes, and Stuart Pearce said the same thing, is that there's the best group of players that he's worked with, the best squad, which says something about the clubs and the teams that they've been at. To say that about this West Ham squad, it just shows unity. Even the pictures of Mark Noble sweeping the dressing room the other night from the Europa League. I mean, it just sets. There's no egos in that dressing room at all, is there?
To be fair to West Ham, obviously in the past, the ownership has been quite interfering in terms of signings and so on. I think certainly with David Moyes coming back the second period of time, he's definitely got far more control of the squad. So, for example, I'll give you an example of this. In January, they were desperate for him to make some signings, and maybe he should have done, actually. Maybe he should have done, but he just couldn't find the right player. Yeah. And I know, speaking to somebody at the club, they were saying, we just wanted to sign someone because we need some players here. Yeah. And we obviously know the criticism of David in the past has been dithering Dave. He takes his time in doing signings. But at the same time, that tends to work very well for him. You know, I mean, I think you've got to trust in him. Maybe they might come up short in terms of the Premier League this season, but in terms of the Europa League, it's worked out perfectly for them. Yeah. You know, and obviously that should be the target now. I actually think they should just concentrate totally on the Europa League now. I wouldn't worry about the Premier League anymore. It doesn't really matter if they finish 9th or 10th. They won't. They'll probably finish 7th or 8th. But, you know, if they finish 9th or 10th and win the Europa League, what does it matter?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at all.
I think because David Moyes came in under a bit of criticism from some West Ham fans for playing their strongest side against Brentford and losing last Sunday in what was a really poor showing from West Ham, and their best fit centre-back at the time, Kurt Zouma, gets injured in the game, so now missing for the rest of the season. So what does he do for this game? Does he rest some players, or do you think he goes full strength?
I think he still goes full strength. I think that's his mode, that's his motto, that's how they've done it all season. I think Dawson at the back has been absolutely outstanding.
Ballon Dawson, they're called.
And listen, for £2 million, it is like literally a snip, you know. And as I said, all round, they're just all riding that wave. They're all enjoying their football. They can't wait for the next game. And, you know, they're on a run at the moment. And you wouldn't, you'd fancy them to go and obviously get a victory in Burnley, I suppose.
Oh, very good. All right.